Welcome everyone. My name is Julie Drzezinski. I'm the Associate Director in the Center for Career Development. And this is our New Year Career Resolutions Young Alumni Panel. So we've got some fabulous alums that have joined us tonight to share a little bit about kind of their experience, like having not too long ago kind of been in the spot where a lot of the students are here today, and kind of how they navigated, life at Holy Cross and then life kind of post Holy Cross to kind of get to where they are today and kind of talk a little bit about their career path and their experiences. And we've got Adriana Coder here tonight, who's a senior. And I'm going to turn it over to Adriana in just a minute. She's going to actually moderate the panel because I thought it'd be nice to have a student kind of chat with the alums and share that perspective. What I will welcome you all to do, all the students on the call. If you have questions along the way, we definitely want to get to those. Please use the chat feature. So if there's kind of a question that comes up while we're talking, just pop it in the chat. I'll kind of be moderating the chat, and if it kind of makes sense, I'll insert questions as we go, and the other pieces will definitely save some time towards the end to go through some of the student questions and have alums respond to those as well. All right, so at this point, Adriana, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, and thank you everyone again for joining us tonight. So I think just to kick things off, if we could have the panelists introduce themselves, your grad year, your major, and what you're currently doing and how your career trajectory started since you graduated from school.
I'll go first and then I'll toss it to someone. So hi everyone, my name's Natalie Correa, class of 2017. I am the program coordinator for the NDI Collaborative for Teaching and Learning, I have such a long title, for National Dance Institute, which is a nonprofit in Harlem, New York that was founded in the 1970s by ballet star Jacques d'Amboise in the belief that all children have the right and should have access to the arts. I was an English major, an English and art history double major, concentrated in gender, sexuality, and women's studies. And I would say that, with Holy Cross, it definitely helped set my career path. It was through Holy Cross. I was on the ballroom dance team. And I've always done theater programs my whole life, but it was my time at Holy Cross that really solidified my love for dance. And so during my time at Holy Cross, I was a PR and social media intern at Boston Ballet. Afterwards, I graduated and I was working for a company called Ballet Hispanico, which is a place I'm an alum from, actually. And then now I'm at NDI. So that's me, and I'm going to pass it over to Paul.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you all for being here. I'm so excited. My name is Paul Endress. I am the class of 2018. I was a chemistry major with a biochemistry concentration. And currently I am in medical school, actually, at Sidney Kimmel Medical College at Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia. After graduating Holy Cross, I actually took 2 years off and I worked as a clinical research coordinator in the division of nephrology, which bonus points to anyone that knows what nephrology is. It's your kidneys. I love them. If you want to talk kidneys, let me know. I worked there at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, and I also worked at CVS as well as a pharmacy technician. So I kind of had a lot of different clinical aspects in which that I was working and kind of grew out of Holy Cross. Yeah, I think that's everything for what am I doing now? Where was I after Holy Cross? I'm going to pass it to Neri.
I had a feeling I was next. Hello, everyone. My name is Nuria Herrera. I graduated in May 2020, so not too long ago. I was a psychology and Spanish double major with a concentration in Latin American and Caribbean studies. I am currently working at the Lawrence, Massachusetts Police Department as a clerk, so more in the finances. But at the time when I first graduated from Holy Cross in May, I worked for the mayor's office as well in Lawrence, Massachusetts, assisting residents and handling the mayor's schedule. I can go into more details later about how I got there. But yeah, that's where I'm at now. I'll pass it on to I lost everyone. Emily.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Vogelsberger. I graduated in 2019, so also not that long ago. Um, I graduated with a degree in computer science, and currently I work at a company called PTC, and we do a lot of industrial Internet of Things for factories. So it's very technical. I won't try to explain it because it's very confusing. But it's a lot of fun, and yeah, I've been working there since I graduated. I actually started like the day after I graduated, so very quick. But yeah, so I'll pass it on to Michaela then.
Thanks, Emily. I am Michaela. I also graduated in 2019. I majored in economics with a minor in environmental science studies. I am a financial services consultant for Ernst & Young. You probably know it as a Big Four accounting firm, but they also do consultancy work. So I basically work on different projects in the wealth management practice, helping financial institutions with strategic business transformation. And I have been there since a month or so after graduation, and it's going really well. So I will pass it on to Antonio.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be with you all this evening. My name is Antonio Willis Berry, class of 2013. So I am probably the oldest of the group here, which is fun and exciting. I actually, funny enough, work at a college as the director of residence life at Merrimack College. I'm so close to Lawrence, like very close. I'm like a stone skipping away from Lawrence. You know, it's funny, when I was a student, I discovered that I could like do this college thing full time and work with college students on a regular basis. And for me, that was a transformational experience. I was an RA, I was a Noel, I was like president of all these clubs, which Amy Murphy can tell you all about. I was a bit too busy when I was a student. And I think I just discovered that I wanted to work with college students because they keep me young. You keep me young and makes me continue to feel young. But also, I think I was telling someone the other day that it forces me to stay on top of like everything. So I need to know about pop culture. I need to understand all the things that they're studying in school. I need to understand what the latest trends are. Like all of my staff members are on TikTok and trying to figure out what is it all about TikTok and why do people like TikTok, right? Which I recognize makes me seem very old, but I'm not that old. But it's like where college students are today, and so trying to stay above the trend. So that's really why I'm here. I'm here to hear all the things that you all are currently doing so I can bring it back to my staff and say we can do these things better, and to talk about really what my experience was like and how I got to this point. So I'm here, glad to talk with you all. And I think I'm the last one, Adriana, right?
Yeah, I think that's it. And thank you all so much for those lovely introductions. So the next question I have for you all is, I'm curious how your majors have or have not mattered in your current professions. And when, obviously, since we're all liberal arts students, I'm wondering how you talked about being a liberal arts student to prospective employers, and if you have any advice that you could give about that.
I can start with this one. I have somewhat of a strong interest in this. I definitely think having a liberal arts degree sets you apart, especially, for example, I had a degree in chemistry, or my major was chemistry. However, going into medicine, I thought chemistry would be so important, and it is very important in all of the world, as I like to think, but I don't use it day to day. And I don't think, from what I've seen when I was interviewing people to work at my old job as a research coordinator, it wasn't so much, that I wanted to know how to calculate grams to moles, moles to grams, all those classic stoichiometry everyone knows from high school chemistry. I wanted to know more how people could think. So I don't think sometimes that, well, I think my major was super helpful in giving me critical thinking and analysis skills. The day-to-day content so much was more something that I used to show off and be like, oh, well, have you taken thermodynamics and quantum mechanics? Because I could tell you all about it. But I think the key aspect of my major and my career was that it gave me the tools and skills to think and even face failure, because that's what science is all about, is that you try something, you're going to get knocked down. And how do you get back up from that? And how do you reframe your thinking?
Do you want me to answer this too?
Yeah, go for it.
Similarly, I think my econ degree helped me like understand the financial service industry as a whole and kind of know like what was going on in the markets and stuff like that. But day to day, I think the liberal arts skills have helped me a lot more like stand out for my colleagues who might be like finance majors from finance business schools, because a lot of my day-to-day tasks will be communications, like on slides to clients or emailing people and stuff like that. And my bosses definitely appreciate like my liberal arts foundation in the like communication skills and like writing and researching things in a kind of a more effective way than I found some of my colleagues can do. So that's been kind of nice.
I will say, so as an English major, initially when I started my career in the arts, I was more on the marketing side, particularly social media and like PR. So being a good writer is very key to those roles. So as someone who loved writing, I was like involved with the Crusader. Um, you know, it helped, I think, that I had English major on my resume because I feel like it gave me some credibility. But at the end of the day, I don't really think it would have mattered because usually when you have a role that's writing heavy, they always ask for a writing sample. So I think that even though the having being an English major gave me credibility, I still think no matter what, submitting the writing sample was going to be what determined the outcome at the end of the day.
Yeah, similar to Natalie, but not with English, with Spanish. Working in a predominantly Spanish community and being a Spanish major, Spanish is my first language. But I think that being able to major in that language really helps me, strengthen my written and verbal skills in order to work for these residents in the city. But then transitioning over to Lawrence Police Department, where I'm not so much interacting with residents in the Spanish language, I realized how like the liberal arts education just helped me provided a foundation to have all of those skills that I need in something that is completely different than what I was doing before at the mayor's office. So I basically realized that at the end of the day, yes, the major, at least for me, influenced what I am currently doing. But I realized that like the overall general education in the liberal arts is what provided me with the skills and the foundation that I need to do what I'm doing now at the PD.
Yeah, I would also add to that because this was something that people asked me about constantly while I was interviewing, because as a computer scientist and as someone who's looking for a software engineering job, people would be like, oh, well, you went to a liberal arts college. Why didn't you go to, some big tech school or something? And it was something that I really pushed a lot of the time, basically saying, well, I can write a lot better than a lot of these people who just did computer science. And I would also say, like I took music classes too, and like just so many different things. And I had a coworker tell me this literally like last week. They said, writing is such a big part of our job. No one realizes it when you think you're going to be a software engineer, you think it's all going to be code, but a lot of it is explaining what you're doing to people who don't understand. And that requires a lot of very like thoughtful writing. Also, additionally to that, kind of going off of, I think someone said that like liberal arts gives you a great foundation. I noticed that with a lot of my coworkers who did go to colleges who are more focused on like just that computer science background and like, you take a whole class on just one language or something, they really don't know how to learn other things. So it's, they will know certain languages or certain like frameworks or packages way better than I can. But if they approach something that they're completely new to, I can like learn about it way faster than they can. And I really credit it like strictly to the liberal arts schooling that I got. So
Okay, great, thank you. And I think something that has me thinking, I think Natalie, I think it was you that said that you were involved with one of the newspapers on campus. And so I'm just wondering if all of you could speak maybe on some activities or some ways that you were involved on campus that helped you show like demonstrated interest in your fields. And if you have any advice on like how people can get involved with things in that respect.
Yeah, I'll start since you called me out, Adriana. But that was actually totally what got me involved in my field. You know, I was not a theater major at Holy Cross, and I was not a dance. No, after I graduated Holy Cross, they created the dance minor, which I'm so mad about. But um, I definitely credit everything, my career, to being on the Holy Cross Ballroom Dance team. And also, I was involved with the Latin American Student Organization and always danced in Noche Latina, which is their annual event of the year where they showcase different dances and cultural art forms. So that really honed my love for the arts and just like bonding with people over it, and I wanted to like spread that joy to others. And also with the Crusader, the reason why I was involved was because when I first went to Holy Cross, I actually thought I wanted to be a fashion journalist. So I was involved with Fashion Society as well as the Crusader, and I was also a tutor at the writers workshop. So I purposely joined the Crusader and the writers workshop to boost my resume, but turned out being that it was the Holy Cross Ballroom Dance team that was really the resume booster in a way. And I think that also goes to show that to do what you're passionate about. And you never know how your passions will influence your career trajectory.
I agree so much with that, Natalie. I think so. I remember when I was a student, I started out as a math music double major. Was like I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I think that sounds great, so let's do it. So I was a math music double, and then I was the president of or the music director for one of the a cappella groups on campus, which I don't think exists anymore, but I was their music director. And I remember it was after a math course or a math exam. I went into rehearsal and like yelled at everyone. And I'm not 100% sure why I did, but after doing some deep thinking, reflecting, I came back to that I was actually a math major because it sounded great and not because it was a passion area of mine. So I dropped it and did music, and like music became my passion. Music has always been my passion. And I was like, why am I forcing myself to do this craziness if I'm not passionate about it? Which I think led to sort of where I am in my career today. Because I was so involved, it was actually easier. I'm convinced that I got my first job. I was working at Bentley University, which was it's a business school. I'm convinced I got my first job, because of my liberal arts degree, but also because of being able to talk about sort of taking a group of 12 or 15 men and getting them to sing beautifully and to dance beautifully, right, on a stage and do the a cappella thing. I'm convinced that's why they brought me in, because I had already figured out before I got to the job how to lead and manage people who are my age or around my age or younger than me. I figured out ahead of time what it means to be a great writer, a great singer, a great performer, right? I can turn it on and turn it off, right? And I don't know if we still talk about that at Holy Cross, but I remember that was a big thing when I was a student there, and we were talking about leadership development. It's like, when do you turn it on and when do you turn that leadership development off, and when is a good opportunity for you to show up and be present, and then when is it okay for you to step back and let other people do so. And so that was also helpful for me. And so I'm convinced, I swear to you, I'm convinced that I think I got my jobs, or I've been getting multiple jobs along the way, because of the leadership experiences that I developed as a student at Holy Cross, and then how I talk about them. I think that's the key piece. Because I've gone up against like a lot of like very fascinating people from very fascinating parts of the world. But what I will always talk about is my love for Holy Cross and the things that I learned along my way there, and all the things that I did to get me to where I am today. And so I think that has been beneficial for me.
Antonio, I couldn't agree more about how you sell like what you did and what you loved about Holy Cross. Because I remember when I interviewed at my job at Mass General, was me and one other girl at the final two, and this girl was from MIT. She had a 4.0 GPA in biology, and I'm like, oh my God, this girl could blow me out of the water. But the way she presented and talked to herself, I remember going to lunch, they like gave us a lunch hour, and I was like, so how you doing? Where do you go? Tell me about yourself. And she couldn't, like, was so nervous, couldn't talk to anyone. And what got me my job actually was that skill in communication and talking to people about what you love. And that kind of ties into one of my activities at Holy Cross that I think really has set me apart from a lot of people in medicine, whether it be my research career or my educational career, was that I was a peer assisted learner, or like a tutor and pal for chemistry. Everywhere I've been, everyone loves asking about that, because such a big part of medical research, medical like learning, even in like medical school, is communicating science to people, because we all can learn science. I could like understand, when I worked at Mass General, I studied this rare disease called hepatorenal syndrome. Saying it, spelling it, I could barely do the first month. And what the key was, what they loved was that I could talk to patients and break down a scientific concept and work through it with them so that they understood what we were doing, what we were figuring out. And my patients were fascinated. They had like zero scientific background, and they're like, really, tell me more. And I remember like patients being like, do you have some like reading material on this? And I was like, I mean, I could find some. I might have to type it myself because it might be a little too high up, but I got you. And that's something I think one of my like favorite Holy Cross activity of being a pal, like tutor, was that set me apart and gave me those skills in medicine to kind of connect with patients and educate them and kind of sell that and communicate. Such a big aspect of Holy Cross.
Yeah, I just want to add to that and say that, again, like when I was looking for jobs, I was really nervous because there aren't a lot of, or at least when I was there weren't a lot of tech clubs. And so I was really scared about like, oh, what about these people who like went to like 16 hackathons and like are in the robotics club and like a bunch of other things. But to be honest, everyone asked me about the fact that I was in like every single band at Holy Cross and oh, like how much you like music and stuff like that. I think just because it makes me an interesting person, kind of what you guys were saying. But also I would say if you're a student and you're a little bit nervous because you feel like there isn't an activity, or like you feel like you need to join an activity at Holy Cross that like shows that you're dedicated to your academic major or whatever, like I really wouldn't be too worried, because as Antonio and Paul were saying, you can learn that stuff from other activities. Like, is it great if you do a hackathon, or are a club that is very specific to your thing? Yeah, that is really neat. But to be honest, that's also like everyone does that. That's pretty basic. So it makes you look way cooler if you get these different skills that other people wouldn't have, because they were just following the same path that everyone else did. So I wouldn't be nervous about that, because that was something that really freaked me out and it ended up being a bonus. So
Thank you. And then I think that this also has me thinking a lot about interviewing, and I guess just like how nerve-wracking interviewing can be. And I think one of the best things you could do is maybe just be like, try and be as confident as well prepared. But I'm wondering if any of you have any experience or insight on how to best prepare for an interview, how you presented yourself, how you talked about things that you're interested in, any advice that you can give in that field.
For me, the interview process for like finance stuff is like pretty like laid out. Like you have your case study and then you have your like behavioral. So for the case study, it's like pretty straightforward. You just prepare, and like it's all about how you think and not if you get to the right answer. So I think that's something that's really important to remember, that really freaked me out and stressed me out. Even when I was in the interview, I was like, oh, I gotta get to the answer. Like, I'm not getting it. He's gonna think I'm stupid. Like, I'm not gonna get this job. But it was more about just like being organized, laying out my thoughts, and like wanting to like get it right and do the right steps regardless of whether I got to the right answer. I left the case study interview without even getting to the answer. I ran out of time. I was like, I hate myself. I just flew to New York for no reason. Like, I was so mad, beating myself up the entire flight home. And obviously I ended up getting the job. It didn't matter. So I think like in the moment, don't beat yourself up or get yourself down because like you think that you did something wrong. Like, do your best and don't like overthink it, I guess. And then in the behavioral or other like normal interviews, I think what I was told like helped me stand out was just like enthusiasm and just talking about what you are passionate about again, and like what you know. So I think the Holy Cross Career Center did a really good job preparing me. And I think like being genuine and being excited are worth a lot more than being the best MIT 4.0 person.
It's real scary when you're growing up against one of them.
I think that a challenge that I faced when going through the interview process is that I think it's very hard to not go down your laundry list of experiences when you're actually sitting there in an interview. So I like, yes, it's good to walk the employer through the resume, but at the same time, I think it's good to prepare beforehand with whether it's stories or specific examples, where you can walk them through the resume, but do it like in a way where, you know, you're fluffing it up per se, and not just going and reading through what's already in front of them. So trying to add in those examples, trying to add in extra details, or even mentioning things that aren't on the resume is something that like I strongly tried to practice when going into an interview before and then obviously after in order to improve for the next interview that was coming up. But it's hard to stick away from that list. But yeah.
I think
Oh, no, take it, Natalie.
sorry. Okay. These are just two things. I think you all probably know already that when you're going on an interview, they're not only interviewing you, but you're interviewing them. And one thing that I learned from my first job, I was like, okay, what are the things I didn't like? And I'm going to make sure to kind of like address in my interview. So I was like, one question I always ask and will always ask is, how long have you been here? Because the reality of nonprofit turnover is real. And I think that just speaks to the work culture. And so when I learned that people at my job have been there like for 10, 20 plus years, like they've been lifers, I'm like, okay, that's a clear signal that people love it here. So it's like has a good culture. And I think there are little things I just like, ask about like benefits, ask about, one thing like that's always a challenging aspect of organizations is like marketing. Like, what's your marketing structure like? Like, what support would I get? I don't know. Like, just think about things that like will really affect you. As I think I was just so concerned, and also was like just not aware of questions like this. Obviously, just graduating from college, I just wanted a job. But as you have more experiences, you'll realize like what are important qualities a company should have. And a second tip that I learned from one of these when I was a student that I've always taken away, there was once an alum who said, the power of a handwritten note, which we all know. But what she did was that after her in-person interview, when we were allowed to do that, she like went to like her local Starbucks or whatever, wrote the handwritten note right away, and then left it with reception. And then reception had it sent, and like the person received it the same day. And I remember I took that tip and I did that for my first job, and I got the offer like the next morning. So I'm not saying that's why, but I think it left an impression that it was like I went to the interview, I had like the blank note card in my bag, went to the nearest Starbucks and left it with reception an hour later. So I don't know, just some food for thought.
I think the only thing I would add, because this has been great, I think when I hire people, I'm a hiring manager now. I don't know when I got to that point in my life, but I guess that's where I am, which also makes me feel old, which is neither here nor there. But when I hire people, what I'm interested in, I judge people based on that first question, which is always the same. It's like, tell me who you are and why you're interested in this job, right? Always the same question. And that for me tells if this is someone I want to be interested in and I want to invest in, or is this someone I can't wait to get done with this 30-minute conversation that we're having. And so I often tell people that with that first question, what impresses me the most is people who have who've at least done some research on the company, or at least done some research. For me, it's in the institution, and understand sort of where we're going, or is going to ask me a follow-up question after I ask that question and they answer it, then they ask a follow-up question of some sort that asks me where we're going, right? For me, it's like I want to hire, I hire people, and a lot of my friends hire people who they are wanting to invest in long term. So like I'm not hiring someone for a couple of days unless that's the job you're applying for, like a temporary job. I support that. I think that works. But most people are hiring someone for the long term, right? Who they can invest in on a long-term basis. And so if you come into an interview and you haven't done research on like where are they going, what does the future look like for them, then I don't know if you are making the best. You might still get said job, right? But it'll make you even more of a better candidate if you have a thought, at least a thought about where they're going and then how either this position fits into that future, or what is it that you can offer that's going to help them get to that next level, right? I think that's also just as important. So something for you to think about.
I also just want to add one more thing. This isn't as deep as what everyone else has been saying, but something that really caught me off guard and terrified me in my interviews is sometimes when you apply for a job, it'll tell you what the salary is, and sometimes they will ask you what you are looking for. And so I would be prepared for that, because that threw me off guard and terrified me, because I was like, I don't know, I want a job, give me anything, I don't care. So but they want an answer. So like it is really worth it to at least have like a range. That's what actually an alum told me. I asked him about this because I was terrified, and he said have a range between, and say I would like between this, and that would be great. But just keep that in mind. I know that's kind of like a dirty detail, but it really freaked me out when I was in my interview.
Emily, I just want to add something to you. Great point. Particularly for all of you, but particularly for like women and people of color, like make sure that you are like confident to like ask for the salary that you deserve. And I remember one of my Holy Cross professors, one of my art history teachers, one point she said, when you graduate, you're like whatever salary you have, like that's like your starting point, because you're never gonna go below that. So like make sure like yes you want a job, but also make sure that like you're getting paid what you're worth. And that's something that always stuck, that's always stayed with me. So I just want to put that out there.
Honestly, bouncing back off of that, so when the alum told me like this is the range you should be asking, he chose a very high number, and I was like, oh my God, that's terrifying. What if they think I'm like so full of myself and like I just came out of college? The interview, I told her that range because I was told to say that, and then she was like, oh wow, that's a lot. And I was like, oh my God, I totally just messed it up. They don't want me, like I look terrible. And then they actually gave me the higher end. So like really do not, trust me, I was also like, what? So like seriously, do not be afraid, be confident, like know what you're worth, do the research, and do not be afraid to ask, because if the company wants you and they can afford it, they will give you, like they do want to pay you most of the time. So
Great, thank you. I think the next thing that I'm curious about is, since we just finished talking about interviews and like how to nail it, everybody's now employed. What are some things that you think would help a new hire stand out? And what are some ways that maybe you found that you've stood out, or different things that you've seen that would be good to know?
I think one thing that definitely, at least in my career when I first started out at working at Mass General, was, and it's something that I know it seems really simple and basic, but like it's 2 points. Is one is don't be afraid to like, if someone asks you to do something, number one, don't say like no. Don't be like, I can't do that. Be like, okay, like let's learn how to do that. Like a friend of mine got, some bad things happened at work when she said she didn't know how to do something she couldn't. And they were like, well, we'll find someone else to do it. Have a good day. When people used to ask me to do things that I had no idea what was going on. Like I was asked to come to a leadership meeting at the ICU and work on how to figure out what our dialysis would look like. And I was like, I don't know anything about any of those words, but yeah, I'll be there. And 2 years later, I was directing Mass General's nephrology COVID response in the ICU. So there's nothing wrong with, if you don't know anything, but someone asks you for help with something, jump right in. That sets you apart so much, because just putting yourself out there to try and be like, let's see what I can do people respect that so much in the workforce. Like they will be like, you know what, you might not know that, but like that's okay, we'll like help you to learn that. And people want you to succeed, like at least from what I've seen. So they'll help you get there. But if someone asks you to do like figure out something with you or help them with something, don't say no just because you don't know it. Don't be afraid. Just dive right in and go for it, because you never know where it's going to lead you.
I totally agree. I was gonna say, like, the best piece of advice that I got when I started at EY was to say yes to everything, like within reason, but say yes to everything and don't be afraid to ask questions. So that like mindset, I guess, led me to like saying yes to this internal initiative that I was like, I don't want to do it. I'm already have a crazy busy project. Like it's a lot to take on, but sure, like I'll do it. And it ended up introducing me to my favorite people at the company. I hadn't met anyone that I was super clicking with yet. And I ended up through this like internal wealth initiative, ended up aligning to the practice that I'm in, meeting all the people that are like going to be my supporters forever, like hopefully. But people that I really like and trust in my company that if I had said no, I would have never met. I'm sure you guys have had experiences like that at Holy Cross, saying yes to going somewhere with a friend or joining a club, and it ends up being like your club or like your group of friends. And it's really scary, but it is so important. And then also to just like ask the questions, because it people like a lot more you to ask them a question and then to answer it and then you do something the right way versus spending 8 hours doing something wrong and then giving it to them and then them being like, well, you could have done this right in 30 minutes if you just asked the question. So they would definitely rather answer all the time. It's not annoying, and just say yes and be enthusiastic and go in with a positive attitude that is like, I can do this, not like, I'm gonna stink at this, but like, sure. So that would be my advice.
Okay. I'm wondering, maybe if you guys could talk about where you are now, like if you thought when you started Holy Cross, this is where you would be, like this is where maybe your first job would have been, and how your identity and your career has developed since what you maybe thought you would have started out as compared to where you are now.
I can tell you no. I did not think I would be the director of residence life at a small Catholic college in New England, right? When I started Holy Cross, I thought I was going to be a math teacher. I thought I was going to go back to the South, originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I thought that's where I'd be teaching math to a bunch of high school students. And I'm not angry about that. I'm not mad about it. I'm still deep in thought about your last question, Adriana, which is more of a me thing, not a you thing. I think my passion area, I think higher education for me has like really changed my trajectory, because everything just seems so like things keep getting different or are consistently changing right around us. Like no one thought COVID would be a thing, right? What I'm thinking about now is how do we come out of COVID, and then what does higher education as a whole look like? And for me, that's the most exciting part of the role at this point. Like we've gone through the craziness of this season. But now what is the next piece of it? What is that next piece going to be? And so I can't wait for it. And I think that's where my trajectory is leading me towards, like coming out of like continuing my crisis management, but in a different way and in a different light. And so like, that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Definitely a no for me as well. As I mentioned before, I thought I wanted to be a fashion journalist, and the way I even got into arts administration. So I was on the Crusader portal. I think it's called something different now. And the PR and social media intern position for Boston Ballet came up. And honestly, that was the only internship that I had applied to that was located in Boston. I'm from New York. And it was the only one related to the arts. Everything else was like a publication or a fashion place. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put my resume in because I'm thinking, okay, like PR, social media, there's a lot of intersections between like ballet and fashion, like, you know, it works. And that ended up being the internship that I got. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that means I'm moving to Boston, and like I studied abroad in Scotland. And like I was gonna come back from Scotland to like then move to Boston and like not even be home. But what that experience taught me, one, I'm so grateful. Like that one internship that was like so different from all the other ones I applied to, um, made me it opened the doors and opened my eyes to the world of arts administration, because as an arts person I always thought I had to be the performer and never really thought about the admin behind it. And that's what like made me fall in love with it and want me to continue on that trajectory. But yeah, I would say no, definitely. I did not know anything. And also, be willing, I think that taught me be willing to take a chance. There was no, I wasn't hurting anyone by just like applying and taking the interview. So don't say no without at least trying. I'd say that just taught me like be open, say yes now and no later.
I couldn't agree more about that. Like, I also did not have any thinking that I would be where I am today. Especially, I had the same thing you had, Natalie, of I'm from New Jersey. And before medical school, I worked at Mass General in Boston. And I remember applying being like, ooh, Boston? And I remember talking to Amy a lot about this and being like, I don't know if I can do the whole Boston thing. Like, that's a cobblestone horse town. What are you talking about? Um, and now I'm in medical school with multiple publications from a top hospital in the country. And people are like, I like say what I did in my last 2 years, and people are like, you worked at Mass General. And the whole reason I am there is because of Holy Cross and the Center for Career Development being like, hey, you should go do this. This will help you. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. Like, that doesn't sound like a me thing. Like, what if they don't even want me? And lo and behold, it turned into probably the most pivotal, life-changing aspect of my life. And I was always so worried that I couldn't do it. I couldn't move to Boston. I couldn't take time off. And one thing that I would like, if I could tell my little me, like, I was always thinking, like, what if I can't do this? I would tell myself, instead of saying that, think, what if you can? Not what if you can't do something, but what if you can do something? Because turns out it's going to be a wild ride and it's going to be worth it.
I guess in my experience, I actually became first involved with the mayor's office in an internship program. I would go during the breaks and participate in that, and then eventually was offered a full-time position there. But I kind of had an idea that I wanted to go back there and just help the community. I knew that during my time at Holy Cross, I was a peer career assistant. So through that experience, I knew that I wanted to continue to interact with people like that and help them in some way. And that is why I decided to go back to the mayor's office once I got the offer. Now, what I'm doing right now in the finances, that I never thought that I would be here doing payroll and paying bills and everything like that. It's a lot different. But at the end of the day, I was able to build that relationship at the mayor's office. I was able to network in order to get me to this next phase of my life at the police department, to eventually get into law enforcement more along the lines of what my true passion is. And I guess I just want to emphasize like the importance of building those relationships and continuing to be in touch with your previous bosses or former mentors. It just really, you don't know where it's going to take you next. So I'll keep you guys posted on where I go on from here. But yeah, it's super important.
Really quickly, just for like the last 15 minutes or so, I want to encourage any students, if you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. And so far, this has been really great. And being a senior myself, it's really nice to hear these things because it's a great validation for me to hear that it's okay if you're not maybe looking where you thought you would originally, and how you've all like progressed from your starting at Holy Cross to where you are now. And so I think the next thing that I want to ask, which Paul maybe started to like talk about a little bit, is if you have any advice that you would give your younger self, if there's anything you would have done differently from the start, if you could just like talk about that maybe.
I think like I would probably tell myself senior year when I was sending out so many applications, basically a second class, or not a second class, but like an additional class, that you would be, I know this sounds a little scary, but you would be surprised how many applications you need to send out in order to get a job. I think I was of the mindset where I was like, oh yeah, I'll send like a couple out. It's like college, like I might get into a couple, like whatever. And it is more like you got to send out like a ton because really they're picking one person for it. And so I really would beat myself up over that and say like, oh my God, I'm not good enough for this. I'm not getting anything. Like I'm applying to a million things. But really all you need is one, first of all. And second of all, I think I would tell myself, just keep in mind, like, because like applying to jobs is hard, and applying to jobs, it's not easy. For some reason I thought it was going to be easy. I thought so, and that was something that I only learned after talking to a bunch of people and after actually going through the job process and talking to more adults about it, that the normal thing is that you have to send a bunch of applications. So do not freak out if you don't get a ton of things. You really are supposed to actually send in so many applications. So that's probably what I would tell myself to stop the stress from senior year.
Say too, don't be afraid to like reach out to people in your network or reach out to people from Holy Cross, because everyone who I reached out to, even if I was like, this person is gonna think I'm a freak, like I don't know them at all, whatever, everyone is more than happy to help you. Everyone that I talked to was so nice. Like people that I didn't even know from years above me in Holy Cross were like, oh, well, we'll put your file on the top or something like that. Like the more people you reach out to, the better, the more advice you'll get, the more support you'll get. So it's never a bad idea. And everyone always likes to talk about their own experiences, i.e. why we're all here on the panel.
I think for me, it's just what I said before, like just to be open. And I don't even mean that in terms of only the job search, but just like be open at Holy Cross to everything. Be open to going to different events and joining new clubs and like meeting new people. Like honestly, when I think about it, if I would have been more open, I probably would have been with my boyfriend. Me and my boyfriend went to Holy Cross, and we got together a year after I graduated. And imagine what could have happened if I were just open and that happened while I was at Holy Cross, right? So I don't know. I'm just saying be open to everything. Be open to life.
I don't have many regrets about my time at Holy Cross. There is one particular thing that I regret the most, and that's not going abroad. I think as an adult, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do some studying when I graduate from college and grad school, right? And now as an adult, I don't do it as much as I wish I had done it during college. And so I'm actually quite jealous of everyone who's ever gone abroad or is even like in a position to still go, because when you become an adult, you don't have the same, like most people don't have 6 months to just go and travel the world or go into a random country or a different country and experience just a different lifestyle. And so I think if I could go back in time, that's what I'd like slap myself upside the head multiple times until I made the decision to go abroad, because I regret it every day.
I think it's important to just remember that you don't need to have everything figured out right away. This is something that I'm still reminding myself, and I graduated in May, and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to fully do. And many times, as first year students or even later, we come in thinking that, oh, I need to have like an internship lined up. I need to have a job lined up right after I graduate. And it's okay. Like, yes, you need to be proactive and taking the necessary steps in order to get to where you want to be, but it's okay to not have it all figured out. And just like, remember that everyone has their own timeline, and you don't necessarily have to compare yourself to what your buddies are doing. So.
I mean, I think that's pretty much all of I have as far as questions. I don't know if Julie, if you wanted to interject with anything or add to this.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Adriana. So students on the call, feel free, like I know it can be scary, but I'm sure you have questions. So feel free to jump in, throw something in the chat. You don't even have to ask it yourself. You can put it in the chat and I'm happy to kind of pose the question to the panel. One question I'd have while students are thinking, oh, good, we've got one. Look at that. Caroline, awesome. So let me ask that question instead of mine. So Caroline's asking, what's the best piece of advice you've received from a mentor? Great question.
I can share one because I just popped into my mind. One of the things one of my mentors at Mass General once told me, it was one day when I was absolutely devastated because I had messed up something like a blood draw on this patient with a rare disease that's 1 in 1,000 per dialysis patients, and dialysis is already rare enough. And I was like, this is miserable. This is horrible. The man literally shrugged his shoulders. He's like, happens. And in that moment, he's like, Paul, things aren't always going to go the way you plan. It's not always going to work out. Things will go wrong. You need to learn to accept that and know that you have the skills to move forward with that. And I always still to this day, even in medical school, I'll get things wrong. And some people here are like, I got it wrong. I'm like, okay, what are we doing next? Looking at a mistake or something that goes wrong, not as the end of the world, but when my mentor was like, it happens. The exact quote is the man was like, some people just don't bleed. And I was like, okay, I guess not. So yeah, that's my favorite one.
Great. Hello, I have a question for Lee, if that's okay. I'm also a computer science major, so I'm going through that job searching right now, and it's definitely a quantity over quality game for me as well. So I'm just looking for my one. I was just wondering for Emily, whether you felt like the Holy Cross computer science curriculum prepared you well for the technical interviews, and then I guess what resources did you use to give you some extra preparation in terms of those interviews?
Yeah, for sure. So this is actually it leads into one of my favorite stories, which is my first ever internship. I was working at an app development, a very tiny app development company in Boston. 30 people are there. One of my coworkers literally told me, you will not use anything you learned in your degree in your career. And he says that goes for every single computer science major. And I think what he means by that is just computer science is so huge and it changes constantly that you're going, what I think Holy Cross prepared me well for, which is kind of what I touched on earlier, is being able to learn at a quick pace to be able to keep up with this technology. So don't get me wrong, you are going to go into the workplace and you're going to see, use Azure and Postgres and all these different databases and stuff. And you don't learn databases at Holy Cross, but you do, again, like I said, learn how to learn. As for how I prepared for interviews, that is a lot. Actually, the interview process for computer science stuff is very similar to Holy Cross tests and stuff. It's all data structures and stuff. So I would use LeetCode, HackerRank. You probably already know those. I would also, there's this book that I used. It's Cracking the Tech Interview, and I would 100% look into that. They give you long interview questions and you can practice on them and stuff. So I will say it is a little bit of studying, so that kind of sucks, but does that kind of help?
Oh yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Emily. So Natalie, question for you. Could you describe briefly what your role at National Dance Institute entails?
Yeah, sure. So National Dance Institute. So let me just start off by saying that primarily what we do, what's the core thing of the mission is that we go into New York City public schools and bring dance classes there. But what I specifically do, I work for the NDI Collaborative for Teaching and Learning, which is the professional development arm of the organization. So there are a lot of dance teachers outside of National Dance Institute who are so interested in our teaching pedagogy and our method and want to learn how to teach dance to young children the way we do. So we provide professional development for them on our teaching methodology, and we have different courses like early childhood workshops, like how do you teach dance to young children, or we have one coming up that's like how do classroom teachers bring movement and music into the classroom. How do dance teachers, music training for dance teachers, how can they look at a score or listen to music and create the best piece of choreography and then teach it to children and make that choreography accessible to them. So that is what I do. I hope that answers your question.
Awesome, thank you. So Paul, question for you. What things during your time in college, whether inside or outside of Holy Cross, help you gain entrance into medical school?
Oh, that's the golden ticket question, isn't it? I definitely think, and this goes back to what we kind of started out at the beginning, I'm a little biased in answering this because I have a liberal arts degree, but I truly think the total package of a person and the total package of what I did is what helped me to be where I am today. The fact that I had clinical experience, that I worked at CVS as a pharmacy tech for 6 years before coming here, that I worked in research, both at Holy Cross. I worked in the lab of Bianca Scalambrini, who if you ever have the chance to take class with her, highly recommend. That I call her my queen for a reason. I worked at Mass General. I was a tutor. And all of these things, I was an RA as well. There were so many different aspects. But at the end of the day, no one was like, well, you did this, so congratulations, here's your acceptance. It was the total combination of everything that I did and the passion that I could talk about it with. Like I loved when I worked at CVS in Boston between 2 methadone clinics. And if you don't know, methadone is what we use to treat opioid use disorder. So a lot of patients were substance use disorder patients who most people think they're kind of difficult. But when I was interviewing places, I was like, I love this population. And just speaking about that and speaking about how I can interact with people, the kind of whole picture is what made it, I think.
Perfect, thank you. So Paul, don't go anywhere yet. So one other question. Could you compare and contrast organic research and clinical research?
Oh, absolutely. That's always my favorite question because it's such a difference. So in organic chemistry research, that was a lot of, I was in lab. If you ever walk down the Smith Labs hallway from like that 3rd floor near Wheeler, the last lab on your right, the door should still say welcome to Skull Lab in markers. And I drew that. It's basically, I was in there running, mixing. I used to say I mix liquids for a living. What do you do? So that was a lot of mixing liquids, running with technology, working with the HPLC, designing experiments kind of with Professor Scalambrini. Whereas clinical research had aspects of what I learned in organic research. So one of the things Professor Scalambrini always used to tell us was a day in the library can save you 20 days in lab. So that meaning like, if you sit and read papers trying to understand things, that'll save you so many headaches down the road. And that helps in clinical research where you're doing a lot of reading and kind of understanding data, but you're also, clinical research has 2 different arms to it, where one being the patient side of one, where most my favorite activity of you get to go talk to patients, you get to interview them, you get to draw their blood, you get to, the amount of urine samples I've taken, too many. But then there's also the data analyst side. So where you're sitting at a computer kind of entering the data from your patients, their vitals, their labs, and analyzing, going through it. So it's very similar in that you're going to have some data analysis at the end, but the key difference is what you're doing in the like active studying arm of it, I think.
Perfect. Thank you. So I know we're pretty much at just about 7:02, so I want to be conscious of folks' time. So just to kind of wrap up, I want to first of all thank our panelists. It was like phenomenal advice and guidance and perspective that you all shared. I think hopefully a lot of the students walked away with some kind of sound thoughts and ideas around kind of how to navigate the time at Holy Cross and post Holy Cross, and that it's You don't have to have it all figured out, and but kind of staying true to your passions and being thoughtful about how you use your time and really touting that liberal arts education. That was something that kind of resonated with me. I'm also an alum, and I agree wholeheartedly. So I think a lot of times students feel like I'm gonna like apologize for it, where I always say, please don't. Like, I think it's a way to set yourselves apart. And I think you heard from alums that are doing things kind of across all different industries, which was really the point of the session today. And they're all using it in such unique and different ways, which is fantastic. Just a quick plug, if for students that are here tonight, you all got an email today. We also have a number of like industry specific virtual networking nights throughout February and early March. So if this was helpful and you kind of want to learn more and dig in like to some industry specific and be able to interact with some alums in specific industries, please go check out that email. They're all in Handshake. You can register for those. So I would encourage you to do that as well. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone's time and have a fantastic night.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.